back to Richback Creations. Today I'm going to make the golden owl that you see Dumbledore talk behind in the Prisoner of Azkaban. And to disappoint everyone, no, I'm not making one in the background just yet, because it will take a lot of days to actually dry in between sessions, and we haven't found that week yet where that fits into our normal time schedule. So today I'm going to make it into a fridge magnet / necklace, whatever you decide you want to do with it. So let's get started. First of all, I just started by looking at some reference pictures of the owl and sketching it out on a piece of baking paper. This means that I can sculpt directly on top of the sketch that I made, and it makes it a lot easier to figure out so it doesn't get too big or too small or anything. So that's just a little sculpting tip if you're quite new to sculpting, or if you just want it a little bit easier for yourself. And now I'm just using a little bit of my clay in the corners, just so that it doesn't move around a lot while I work on it. And after that, now I'm just going to start sculpting. So first of all, now I'm just squeezing out some pieces. I'm just going to lay it flat at the edges of the top wing. They have sort of 3 sections to the wing, and I'm just going to lay that into the middle of the owl. And this is just going to give me a nice flat surface to attach the feathers that are here. And for the feathers, I'm just going to start rolling out, sausages, and then shape them flat, and then slowly I gotta attach them all like this and start sculpting details after I laid a lot of them out. So as you just saw, I'm just attaching the feathers onto the piece of clay I laid down, and then just to make sure that it sticks. And while you do that, you can start sort of sculpting a little bit of some indents on the feathers to give it a little bit of dimension. And slowly I'm going to sort of shape, it's a little bit difficult to see, but I'm going to shape the feathers with some points in the end. And also push the bottom layer a little bit so it doesn't go like a bow and then random things sticking out, but sort of like a triangle indent between each feather. And you're just going to work on it and maybe add a little bit of clay if you see it's a little bit too thin some places, and really just work on them. So what I'm doing now, before I'm going to add the next layer of feathers and before I go on with the details on the tip feathers, is just here where it's a little bit thick. I'm going to drag that towards the inner section of the wing so it doesn't get lumpy or too thick in one area, and this just gives me that same overlay area that I had in the beginning before I laid the first feathers. So for the details, I'm just going to take my tool and drag really simple lines in the feathers. And I'm just going to add some small lines on the sides that feathers have, just to add a little bit of extra detail to the sculpture. And after that, I'm going to begin laying on the new layer of feathers. So for the second row of feathers, you want to be a little bit more detailed with how you roll out the piece of clay before you add it on. So perhaps you want to get a little bit more sharp point to the end and squeeze them out a little bit more before you add them on. The reason why I'm doing this is because it's a little bit more difficult to adjust them since you already have a lot of details going on underneath. So once I have it, I'm just going to carefully sort of place it where I want it, and I saw that I maybe want it a little bit thinner and wider. And then I'm just going to add it on where I want it. And it's going to be a little space in between here and there, a little bit asymmetrical. You don't want to have it to be perfect in any way because you want to have a natural flow to them. And here I think I had 10 feathers, and I'm going to have roughly the same amount here, perhaps a couple less. And I just want to add it right where I want it. And then I'm just going to continue adding them like I did with the previous row and squeeze out the excess clay into the final piece here, and then work on the details as well. So for the last feathers, I'm doing it a little bit differently. So I'm adding a piece that is really thick on the end and thinned off. And the reason why I'm doing this is because that the owl has a curve on the wing that sort of makes it look a lot of like curved towards the back on this side. So I want to add that curve while I add the feather pieces. So for the last part here, I'm just working on the details on the feather, sort of pushing down a little groove and then lightly going upwards again towards the end. And I'm going to merge them together a little bit so it sort of gets one uniform shape towards the body of the owl. So for the final piece, after I smooth it out, I'm just going to add some of the lines back into the design. Then just go over with the same lines as on all the other ones, but just start and stop before you reach the end. So now that I've finished with the wing, I'm just going to do the same on the other side before I continue with the rest of the body. So once you're finished with the wings, you're just going to go ahead and start adding some tail feathers. And a lot of them is not going to be really visible because you're going to add the crystal ball it's standing on top. But I'm just adding a couple, and it's pretty much the same texture and process as for the wings. So once I just added a couple, I'm just going to merge them together with my tool and work on them a little bit to give them the right look. They look a little bit different, not much, but they do have a lot more of the sort of harsh incisions on the side. The other feathers have them too, but not as strong as on the tail feathers. So I'm just adding those, and then I'm gonna just do the line up in the middle and the small lines as I did on the wings. So that is pretty much it for the tail feathers. Just focus on the sides that will be visible. Now I'm going to add a ball of clay. That's going to be the crystal ball that the owl is standing on. I'm just going to work that a little bit into the feathers to make sure that it's thick. And then I'm going to work on the edges and sort of get it to look really round and perfect before I'm going to add the feet and the rest of the body after that. So before I add the feet, I'm just going to add the little snake tail that the ball has in the bottom. And just rolled out a piece of clay, and I'm just going to add it to the right side, like so. For the feet, I'm just making 2 small incisions to create 3 toes. And I'm not going to worry about the back side because it's not going to be visible since this is a sort of 2-dimensional relief figure. So I'm not too concerned about what would have been the back toe of the owl. And it's perhaps easier to just lift it up and sort of squeeze it together to make those thin, long claws that they have. And once you're happy with it and you like the size and the way that it bends, then you can add it onto the ball and then start working on it on the owl. So now I think I have a foot that I'm happy with the size, that it isn't too big. It is a little bit finicky because they're pretty small details. But you just want to add the foot on, and one claw is connecting to the little snake tail. You just want to attach that, and you just want to do the same process to the next foot. So once you added the toes on, you just want to start working on the area where the nail goes into the toe. just sort of define that area and give it a little bit of a distinction. So what I'm just doing now is adding a base layer that is a little bit thick. I'm just going to add that to the head and the rest of the body before I go any further with any details. Just to get out the basic shape and height of the figure. So now that I've gotten a basic shape out here for the base, I'm just going to start making a little bit of a feathered texture in the back. I'm adding some rolled out pieces of clay onto the feet I made earlier. I'm just going to blend that into the upper body on each side. So once you blended in the legs with the feet, you just want to take some tool. I have one that is a little bend shape. It just makes it easier. And I'm just going to press it down into sort of dragon scale look, overlapping feathers. I'm just going to work my way upwards on both the legs and on the chest part. So for the texture, if I want bigger like half circles than the ones I have down here, instead of just pushing it down, I'm going to push it down to one side and then push it over and then lift it instead of pushing the entire thing down at once. For the face, I'm just going to add a flat circle and just put that on the top of the clay. And I'm just going to blend that into the top of the head, but I'm going to avoid blending it in on this side because I want an edge from the body to the head. So what I just did, I just added a little bit more of a height on this area of the head because I thought it was a little bit too flat and going backwards. So I looked at it on the side, it just looked a little bit too flat. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start adding a little piece of clay that's going to become the beak. And it's sort of like a diamond shape. Just going to add that and blend it out to the sides. So once I've attached the beak part and sort of blended it into the rest of the face, I'm now just going to make 2 indents on the sides. Just to sort of make it more detailed around this area. Then I'm going to soon begin working on the eyes. For the eyes, I'm just going to pop in 2 pieces of clay and then smooth out the transition towards the face and the forehead. Just going to do that first before I continue. But the last thing you're going to do is add some lines to the face because it has some almost like a sun where they radiate some lines from the eye outwards that covers the entire face. And that is pretty much it when it comes to the sculpting. So the last thing I'm going to do for the details is make more of the little bow looking things on top of the head, and they're going to be really soft. To just add that on the entire thing, and that is pretty much it. Now I'm going to bake it in the oven for 30 minutes and then I'm going to continue after that. So once it's out of the oven and it has cooled down, I'm just going to flip it to the back side, and I've added some clay here as you can see because there were some imperfections on the back. And additionally I'm going to add some hooks. These are just made out of some steel wire. And I'm just pushing that into the new clay I just added. And I'm going to add them roughly on the elbow part of the wing. And I'm just going to add some more clay on top just to make sure that that won't fall off. And that is pretty much it for the backside, and then I'm gonna bake it one more time with that on. Then I'm gonna add the magnet after it's baked and the necklace. So here is the owl after I spray painted it, and on the back side I just glued on a magnet in the middle because I wanted it as a fridge magnet. Additionally, I decided that I wanted it as a necklace as well, so I'm having some non-permanent hooks on each side attached to the ones I made on earlier. So it means that I can take off the entire necklace whenever I want to hang it up somewhere. And that is pretty much it. So that is the finished project for today. I hope you all enjoyed. We're considering selling a couple of these as necklaces and magnets online. So leave a comment down below if that would be anything of interest. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for watching.